All right, guys, Nuance Bro checking in. We're in San Francisco, California at the animal activist ban fur protest. Let's go talk to people. So, until every animal is free. All right. So, why are you out here today?
We're out here today to protest against the fur and the fur industries. We are fighting for the lives of foxes, minks, rabbits, and the like. These are all animals that are very important to all of us, and they are all individuals. They all have feelings, they all have families, they all have personalities, and the most important thing is these animals want to live, and they are being tortured, abused, exploited, all for the sake of fashion, and it's something that we're very much against and that we won't stop fighting for.
So the main objection is, you know, if they're alive, animals are alive and stuff like that, and then you're killing them just for their coats and things like that, right?
Absolutely, 100%. There is no humane way to kill someone that does not want to die.
So what if they're already dead and then you just procure them, for, you know, you procure their hide and meat and all those things?
Personally, and I'm just speaking for myself, I'm still against that. If there is an animal that's already dead, it is my opinion, and what I would do is respect the animal's life, lay that animal rest, and let it be.
And so this is about fur mainly, but are things like leather and maybe wool also included in that?
100%.
So for wool, for example, why are you against wool?
Well, just Google what it takes to make a pair of Uggs, and your answer's right there.
Well, for example, like a lot of these sheep, if they're not sheared, their fur coats just keep growing and growing and growing until like they can't even move. They're immobilized and they can die from that. And they can overheat. So it's actually in their interest to be sheared and have their coats removed.
Sheared? Sure. You can let your hair grow out and, become sick because you don't cut your hair because it gets infested with things like that. If you want to give a sheep a haircut, by all means. But the way that these animals are being treated, the way these animals are being sheared, nobody gets a haircut until they bleed. These animals do.
So why are you here today?
I'm here today to speak out for all the animals that are being slaughtered and enslaved to sell clothing for us, for the people that consume it.
And what are we trying to achieve today?
We are trying to achieve the ban fur in San Francisco because we already did it on Berkeley. So we wanted to do it in all over the country and California and so.
And does that fur ban also include things like leather and wool?
Yeah, because that's still is part of the animals. It's part of their skin and their bodies. So yeah, it's all of what it's taken from the animals.
Sure. And what's your specific objection to things like wool, for example?
Well, they say that you have to cut the wool from the sheep constantly, but why are you using it?
I mean, why not use it? You don't want it to go to waste, right?
Well, it's not going to waste, but the thing is that the wool industry is having animals to do it. It's not because they go and they found a sheep and let's cut her hair and we can have it.
Well, these are just domesticated sheep, so they can't actually survive in the wild necessarily because they actually their genetics it's more geared towards just continue to grow fur. So if they're not sheared, it just grows forever, and then they're immobilized. They suffer from heat stroke and things like that.
Yeah, but why are we using that? It's theirs.
But I mean, what should we do with the waste? Just throw it away and not recycle it?
Yeah. It's like our hair. When you cut your hair, no one is taking it and selling it, or you are not enslaved in a place where people is constantly cutting your hair and using it. So I don't think we should do it with to animals.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell.
Just like us! Animals have families! Just like us! There's never an excuse!
This guy,
Black Friday, it's not an excuse!
Black Friday.
A sale is not an excuse!
Boom, yeah, shakalaka.
Animals feel pain!
Donald Trump.
Animals want their freedom!
I like water.
It's not fur.
I don't know what we're saying.
It's not leather.
I didn't memorize these chants.
It's not clothing. It's violence. It's not fashion.
It's violence. I got this one down right. So why are we out here today?
So we're here today to demand an end to the sale of fur in San Francisco, and we're also here to raise awareness about violence towards animals more generally. We're out here on Black Friday, which is this big consumerist, day for capitalism, for buying things for excess, and nothing kind of symbolizes the dark side of that, like fur, which is something which is completely unnecessary. We don't need to hurt animals. Animals are treated horribly for this really expensive, seen as a luxury item, and we're here to speak up against that.
Sure. And do you feel like things like leather and wool are also included in that?
Well, they are. I think from a philosophical or a moral perspective, there is no distinction to be made there. From you are exploiting a living, feeling individual for your own use against their consent. So from a moral perspective, they're very much the same. Now, from a political perspective, from a legislative, reality on the ground perspective, there is a big distinction there. And we've already seen a ban on fur in West Hollywood. Earlier this year, a ban on fur in Berkeley. So this is something that is more politically salient and doable, whereas something like leather and wool are something that's more seen as a mainstream thing. So that's certainly on our radar, but it's further down the road.
So, for example, let's say an animal's already dead, because the whole objection is we're killing a living being or using them. What if it's already dead and you're just procuring, maybe you found it or something, or it got old and it died, or would that be as objectionable, or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean that's probably some sort of a gray area. I mean, I think it's kind of weird, and it kind of sets a little bit of a bad precedent. I mean, I don't know. We could go around and start using dead human skin. If people want to eat humans that are dead, that's pretty strange and kind of sets a bad precedent of using human beings or using non-human beings as objects. So, as a matter of principle, I think we probably stay away from it, but it's technically some kind of gray area if we were literally just talking about that.
And things like wool, for example, like most of these sheep, these domesticated sheep, they just keep growing the wool and wool until it's sheared off of them.
Yep.
And if it's not cut off, then they can die from heat stroke. They're immobilized, for example. So is that more of is that okay to use, for example?
Careful. So that in that very isolated circumstance, you can kind of zero in on the small picture and say, yeah, we need to shear the sheep for the sheep's individual good. But what we really need to focus on is the big picture. Like, how do we get into this circumstance? How we got into this circumstance is speciesism. It's like thousands of years ago, somebody found a wild animal and we started breeding them to serve our needs. And yes, we have through generation after generation of exploitation and violence from humans, we've created these animals who are dependent on humans in many different ways. So yeah, in the short term, just like with a dog on the street, or just like, in a lot of circumstances, like, we need to do what we need to do for the care of those individuals. But what we really need to do in a broader sense is to shift the narrative around our interaction with these animals and the relationship we have. We need to stop looking at it as what do we get out of them, and we need to come at it from a big picture sense of helping them, not enriching ourselves.
Sure. But in the sense of helping them, it does help them to shear off the wool. So wouldn't it be smart to actually use that and recycle instead of just throwing it away and wasting whatever there is?
Yeah, I mean, in the very immediate term sense, that's a reasonable thing to do.
Maybe just control, make it a humane process instead of just trying to shear them as quickly as possible and injuring them and things like that.
No, I appreciate that perspective, but I actually disagree, because there is a fundamental difference in a world where we look at animals as objects that we can use and abuse versus a world where we respect animals as the living, feeling individuals which we know them to be.
What if they're companions? Like it's your companion animal, and you want to help shear them, but you also use them to procure your own, clothing, or you make it for other people and sell it and make a business out of that, but they're still companions that you value and love and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, if in a circumstance where we end up with an individual who is in need of our help, then we help them. I mean, the same as we do, frankly, with human beings who are, might have some sort of disability and they need our help. So we put them, in some sort of, place where we can help them. but it should not be the objective. If we really wanted to be helping animals, we don't breed them to where they're getting all this wool where they're uncomfortable, or we hear the similar argument with dairy where they're producing all this milk. Well, that didn't just happen by accident, right? That's so fundamentally our relationship with animals should be one where we're helping them, and any benefits that we happen to get are incidental. Just like when if there's a human being who's disabled and needs help, you might find some fulfillment in helping them, but it's not coming from like, okay, let me find how this disabled human being can enrich me. That's not where that conversation starts.
Sure. And one more question. I see a few like PETA sponsored signs. Are you a supporter of PETA?
In a broad sense, yes. We can always talk about specific tactics here or there that I wouldn't agree with, but PETA has done wonderful things for animal rights. Frankly, put animal rights on the map. This was a thing that nobody even practically heard of decades ago. So absolutely, in a big picture sense, we need collaboration and unity against speciesism and against animal agriculture, and PETA is a big part of that. Sure.
And I've also heard things like when they take animals into shelters, they end up killing a lot of them. What about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's a really difficult question, and I'm not going to say I agree with everything PETA does. If there are animals that in the society we have, there's not the resources, the infrastructure to, I don't know. It's an extremely difficult question with no great answers, and I can't confidently endorse any solution to that.
Right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yep. Where are we on that? Animals, we're all animals. Animals. Go on, be brave. Go out there, make history. Justice to my life. The justice to the lives lost. Oh, you know the song by heart. And the silence, stop the violence. Organize, mobilize. Speak up for the defenseless. Without you, we're defenseless. Here is what. Oh, liberation. So, why are you here today?
For the animals, so that people stop torturing them.
And what are we trying to achieve specifically?
Well, today is Fur Free Friday, is what it's considered for many years now, and so we're working specifically to ban fur sales in San Francisco. I was listening to the last interview, and I'm learning myself. I'm not an expert in this, but I was appreciating his perspective from a political point of view. It has been successful to ban fur in certain cities, and once that happens, then we'll move towards leather and wool and any other form of animal exploitation.
So it's an incremental process, kind of just like get that first victory, and then that will hopefully create momentum and make it easier to go towards. Basically, is the goal to ban anything that's animal derived?
That sounds like a good path. Yeah. Any sort of exploitation and torture of animals is what I'm working to end, and it has been banned in Berkeley already. Fur has, and we're also working on banning meat in Berkeley. That's the main campaign that Direct Action Everywhere is working on right now.
Okay. And also, so for example, what about certain animal testing applications that could potentially save many human lives? Like let's say it's animal testing on mice that could help develop new drugs and new medical advancements that could help lots of humans. What's your opinion on that?
I personally wouldn't want to survive on the torture of others, so I'm not even certain that they've really made any major breakthroughs by testing on animals, because humans are so different. And I feel that if it is important to test something for a human, that humans can be found to be experimented on in whatever agreement they come up with.
Don't you think it would be a little worse to potentially put humans at risk, whereas we could put like mice, for example, at risk instead?
Well, if a human agrees to it, the mice don't have a chance to agree, so it's just forced torture.
But they're also, maybe they have like some sort of potentially life-terminating illness, and the only reason they agree to it is because they might die anyway. Is that really much of a choice?
They still are making a choice ultimately.
I see a lot of PETA signs up here. What are your thoughts on PETA?
Love PETA, big supporter.
So they've been known to kill a lot of animals in shelters. What are your thoughts on that?
PETA only operates one shelter, and they only kill animals that have either physical ailments that are so extreme and painful that the only kind thing to do is to put them out of their misery and give them a kind death.
But that's about 88% of the animals they take into their shelters that they kill. And they only transfer about, I think, 2 to 4%, and then only about another 8% get adopted.
They take in animals at these no-kill, and I'm using air quotes, no-kill shelters, who only take in animals that don't have any physical or behavioral problems and who can be adopted out. PETA takes in anybody. They go to these places who people keep these animals in their backyards or for fighting or for all kinds of things and try to get them out of that horrific situation. And some of them are just not adoptable.
All right, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, support me on Patreon. Social media links are in the description box below. And thanks for tuning in for another episode of Nuance, bro.